You can't bring food from the store, it has to be homemade. My sister insisted this for Thanksgiving. I work 60-hour weeks. Those are the rules. So, I stayed home. At 8 p.m., Dad messaged, "Where's the turkey?" I replied, "You were supposed to bring it." I thought store-bought wasn't allowed. When they realized I was meant to bring the main dish, I thought, Thanksgiving has always been more than just one day in our family. It was an event. Weeks of expectations wrapped in smiles. Traditions felt like rules, and unspoken roles everyone had to fill without questioning. No matter how old I got, or how independent I became, my role remained the same. I was the dependable one, the adaptable one, the one who would make it happen. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, my sister sent a message in the family group chat. It wasn't long, polite, or framed as a suggestion. It was a command: no store-bought food, only homemade. I read it while standing in the break room at work, my back against the counter, my feet sore after hours on them. The smell of burnt coffee filled the air, and my lunch sat untouched beside me, because I hadn't felt hungry all day. Working 60-hour weeks had become my norm, not by choice, but because life demanded it: rent, insurance, student loans. None cared about holidays or family traditions. I typed slowly, "I'm working a lot right now. Can I bring something easy?" The typing bubbles appeared, then vanished. The reply came, "Those are the rules." The word rules felt heavy in my chest. My sister loved rules, especially when she enforced them. She called it standards. My parents called it organization. I learned long ago it really meant control. I stared at the message longer than I should have. She knew my schedule, that I lived alone, and that I couldn't spend a whole day cooking something fancy. Yet, she made the rule for me. That evening, Dad called. He didn't ask about my work, or if I was tired. "So what are you bringing?" he asked as if it was already decided. "I don't know yet," I replied cautiously. "She doesn't want store-bought." "Well, you'll figure it out," he said. "Everyone's counting on you." That statement weighed heavily. "What exactly am I supposed to bring?" I asked. There was a pause, the kind that suggests someone thinks you're being difficult. "The turkey," he replied. I stopped in my tracks. "The turkey?" I repeated. "Yes," he said. "The main dish." I chuckled softly, standing alone outside my apartment. Not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. "I'm working all week," I said. "So is everyone," he replied. "You'll manage." That night, I sat at my kitchen table long after dinner, staring at my calendar: double shifts, overtime weekends, one day off before Thanksgiving, already split between errands and exhaustion. Cooking a turkey from scratch wasn't just inconvenient, it was unrealistic. A dangerous thought whispered to me, what if I didn't go? I quickly dismissed it. That's not how family works. That's not who you are. But the thought lingered quietly. I recalled previous holidays when my sister criticized the casserole I made, when she laughed at the store-bought pie, and how my parents always brushed it off with, "She just wants things done right." No matter what I did, it was never right. Suddenly, the rule about homemade food felt less like a rule and more like a test I was meant to fail. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I stopped responding in the group chat. No announcements, no arguments, no explanations. I just stopped trying. Thanksgiving morning came quietly. No rushing, no frantic cooking, no rehearsed defenses in my mind. I worked a short shift, came home, and made myself a simple meal. Nothing fancy, just warm food. For the first time in years, I felt calm on Thanksgiving. That scared me. At 8:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Dad, where's the turkey? You were supposed to bring it." I stared at the message, my heart steady instead of racing. I typed back, "I thought store-bought wasn't allowed." The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared quickly. Another message came, "What do you mean store-bought?" I replied, "I work 60-hour weeks. I don't have time to cook a turkey from scratch." There was a long pause, long enough for me to imagine the table, the empty spot, the realization settling in. Then my sister entered the chat. "You were assigned the main dish." Assigned like an obligation, like something I owed them. I set my phone down and didn't respond. For the first time, I let them face the consequences of their own rules. Once confusion turned to blame, and blame to panic, the truth behind those rules would finally emerge. I didn't reply to Dad's message that night. I stared at the screen for a long time, not because I lacked words, but because for the first time, I realized I didn't have to say anything. The house was quiet, too quiet. No clattering dishes, no voices competing, no tension in the air like always during holidays. Just me. And for once, that didn't feel lonely. My phone buzzed again and again. My sister first, 3 missed calls in a row. Then my mom, then my dad, sending a message that wasn't angry, but wasn't calm either. "Where are you?" "People are asking about the turkey." I exhaled slowly. People always asked when something was missing. They never asked when I was tired. I imagined the scene without being there: the table set, but missing the one thing they assumed would appear. My sister pacing in the kitchen, annoyed and snapping at her kids. My dad checking his watch, already frustrated. My mom trying to ease the tension with forced laughter. And for the first time, I wasn't rushing to fix it. I set my phone down. About an hour later, the tone shifted. The messages were no longer sharp, but confused. Did you forget? You were supposed to bring it. This is really inconvenient. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. When I finally replied, I kept it brief. I stayed home. That was it. No explanation, no apology, just the truth. The silence that followed was immediate. Then my sister called. I answered calmly. What is wrong with you? She demanded. You know how much work this is. I leaned back on my couch. I do, I said. That's why I stayed home. She scoffed. Unbelievable. You couldn't just help once. I've helped every time, I said. This is the first time I didn't. My dad took the phone. You embarrassed us, he said flatly. I swallowed, not because he hurt me, but because I finally understood him clearly. I didn't embarrass you, I replied. I removed myself. That's the same thing, he snapped. No, I said. It only feels the same because you're used to me fixing things. There was a long pause. Then my mom spoke softly in the background. You could have said something. I closed my eyes. I have, I said, for years. You just didn't listen. That night, I didn't cry or spiral. Instead, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. The next morning, my mom showed up at my door. She didn't text first. She never did when she wanted control disguised as concern. I opened the door slowly. She walked in, looking around as if inspecting a space she no longer recognized. You really hurt your sister, she said. I nodded. She hurt me too. That's different, my mom replied immediately. I looked at her. No, I said quietly. It just used to be quieter. She sat down, rubbing her hands together. You know how she is. Yes, I said. And you know how I am too. Or you used to, she frowned. That's not fair. I took a deep breath. What's not fair is expecting me to carry everything because I don't complain loudly enough. She didn't argue. That was new. Instead, she looked tired. Suddenly, I realized something painful. They hadn't leaned on me because I was strong. They leaned on me because I was available. Over the next few weeks, things shifted, not dramatically, without apologies or grand gestures, but subtly. My sister stopped assuming. My dad stopped assigning. My mom hesitated before asking. And I began to notice how often they didn't know what to do without me. At Christmas, I stayed home again. I made a small meal for myself, lit a candle, and watched a movie without anyone interrupting or criticizing. And I felt something unfamiliar: peace. A month later, my sister texted, "Can you help me with Easter planning?" I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "No, nothing more, no explanation." She didn't reply, but my mom did the next day. We all need to do better at respecting each other. I read it twice. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't denial either. For now, that was enough. I didn't become distant or cold, nor did I cut anyone off. I simply stopped being the automatic solution. And that changed everything. Here's what I learned, not as a dramatic ending, but as awareness I wish someone had shared with me sooner. People don't always mistreat you because they're cruel. Sometimes they do it because you've made it easy to overlook your limits. When you're dependable, people forget you're human. When you're quiet, they assume you're fine. When you say yes too often, they stop asking if you should. Boundaries don't tear families apart. Unspoken resentment does. The truth is, when I stopped sacrificing myself to keep everyone else comfortable, I didn't lose my family. I found myself. You are not responsible for maintaining harmony at the cost of your own well-being. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to step back without explaining yourself. Because love that only works when you're exhausted isn't love, it's convenience. And anyone who truly values you will learn to meet you where you stand, not where you've silently carried them all along. That's all for today. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care, and remember, your peace matters.